speak, please remember to state your name and address clearly for the record and limit your time to 3 minutes. First speaker, Peter Gostin.
It's already on. Good evening, Majority Leader Dyson and members of the Common Council. Peter Gostin, 88 Brittany Farms Road, New Britain. As a registrar of voters, I'm here to speak on 2 agenda items. The first being item number 1, a resolution returned from committee regarding the approval of new boundaries for the 5 Common Council wards. As Vice Chair of the Redistricting Commission, I am pleased with the effort of our group. The ward map before you represents 2 months of negotiations and compromise. Commissioners exchanged ideas and listened to public comments, and after 5 different maps came together unanimously to endorse the map you have before you. There was much discussion of the new assembly districts drawn by the state legislature, which modified all of the assembly district lines drawn 10 years ago. This necessitated the rethinking of where the new boundaries could be drawn so that 5 near equal ward populations could be established from 3 1/4 assembly districts, all the while trying to limit the number of ward lines from crossing over into another assembly district. The new ward map successfully meets this challenge as well as adheres to other criteria as set forth in our city charter. I urge your approval of this bipartisan effort. The second item I'm speaking to is number 8 under new resolutions, the approval of new voting districts to be assigned to each of the 5 wards. The responsibility for creating voting district lines falls to the legislative body of each municipality, and my office has presented this body with a packet of information that I expect will be discussed in great detail next week after you've referred this resolution to the Administration, Finance, and Law Subcommittee. This information is offered as a way to support this council by providing a starting point for such discussion. Due to the late start and completion of the ward map, there is a short time frame in which the voting districts must be drawn. Connecticut General Statute 9-169 requires this process to be completed 90 days before the August primary, which is 2 weeks away on May 11th, which is also the next regular meeting of this Common Council. Time is of the essence, and you can count on my office to assist you in any way you may need. I will remain in attendance to answer any questions you may have during your regular meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Rogers.
Hello, I'm Mary Rogers from 298 Cherry Street in New Britain. A quick update on illegal dumping on Cherry Street. Alderman Dyson, Alderman Sirpo, and Alderman Thompson had worked with me on that issue. Public Works said that they would clean that area in April, and they did. Thank you, I appreciate that very much. Thanks to Alderwoman Ortiz Luna for reaching out to me, and Alderman Ayalon for taking the time to meet with me. Back in February 2022, I spoke in favor of remote participation. I was glad that it was adopted, but I'm disappointed that it has not been implemented yet. I heard you were waiting on better equipment. I understand IT supply chain issues, as my IT business has similar experiences. When my business is waiting on parts, we try to have workarounds in place. Whatever system the city was using might be imperfect, but sometimes good is good enough until you get the new parts. I also pointed out some inconsistencies in the city's website regarding meetings and events. Since then, a new version of the website was published. While there is some improvement, I still don't see meetings on the calendar like the Charter Revision Committee meetings for April and May. The chairwoman of that commission has told me she'd asked for the agendas and minutes to be posted, but to my knowledge, there is only one video from the March 1st meeting posted. From a resident's point of view, that is disheartening. It is also difficult to know from the website calendar what meetings will have a live stream, what meetings will have remote participation when available, and to easily see agendas. I see some meetings don't even have agendas or minutes, so I don't know why that is, and that's confusing for me. There also seems to be an issue when a meeting is rescheduled, like the Board of Water Commissioners still shows as being on April 20th, when it was moved to April 27th, and then that meeting was also canceled. From the website, you wouldn't know that. The city has social media accounts. Maybe cancellations could be posted easier there than on the website. I think working on those items aligns with objectives in the Plan of Conservation and Development adopted in December 2021, such as expanding city IT systems and website to improve usability and transparency, and publicizing existing services and exploring new methods to communicate more effectively to the residents. Another area where I think the city can improve public access is on the budget. This is the first time I've really tried to view the proposed budget books online. My initial reaction is that they are cumbersome, daunting, and tedious to get a summary out of. I wish there were ways to search and filter, play around with the numbers a little bit. Maybe an interactive spreadsheet version could be distributed to make it easier for the public to view. Finally, I'm interested to hear from other residents on the council on how to resolve issues with the high water billing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, C. Smith, C.O. Smith.
Thank you for the time that you allow for us to speak. My name is Charlene Smith. I live at 243 Lawler Street, New Britain. She pretty much covered everything I was going to say. So what I want to know, since we have started with these new water bills that are coming out, is there a cap, like a minimum, or are you being billed for the usage? Can anyone answer that question?
We're not in a debate. Somebody can answer after, but
Okay.
this is your public
So
participation.
I really would like to know that answer to that question, because I shouldn't have received a bill as high as I did for 3 months of service. So I would like that to be addressed, as well as the mayor should actually take a look at some of these high water bills. And she needs to start reaching out to the residents of New Britain, because this situation needs to be resolved. Instead, it's just snowballing more and more and more. And people are going to be losing their homes, but yet they're still paying taxes on their property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Candace Scott?
Hello, Candace Scott, Lawler Street, and I am back again to discuss the inconsistencies, the lack of communication, and the problems that the people here in New Britain have with the water and the billing. One thing, first of all, you canceled the meeting twice in a row this month, and it is not giving an opportunity for new residents who have a high water bill who would like to discuss their bill, and for myself to discuss my bill. I feel like that's completely unfair, and it's like you're taking away our rights to be able to do that. Meanwhile, you're still charging us interest for those bills up until May 18th. Our mayor has the ability to have this meeting as an emergency because there are so many residents here in New Britain with this issue. Instead of running away from this issue, we need to tackle it face on, not be afraid, but go ahead and hear the residents speak about their concerns. I have been speaking to way too many residents. This is not even about my bill anymore. I want to make that clear. This has nothing to do with my bill. It has to do with the community and the people here who are struggling with these bills. I'm lost in all of this. The Neptune, so I had someone tell me some interesting information about these meters. And his case is sort of similar to mine. The meter is old. You come out, you take the meter, you're tampering with the meter when you're moving it to another location and testing it. These meters only work for about 10 to 15 years based on the manufacturing of the Neptune meters. However, you're still going ahead and telling us that we're supposed to be responsible for bills that these meters are reading inaccurate. It's not, it just doesn't make any sense. If the meter is old, my meter was about 30 years old. This gentleman, his meter had the same issue. He owes about $20,000 extra for his water bill. I spoke to an elderly woman this weekend who has $25,000. I have someone else here in this room that owes $2,900 for a 6-month period, in a one-bedroom home around the same size as mine. The lack of communication has got to stop. We have to take care of this issue. We are not going away. I don't care if you reschedule this meeting until next year. I'm still going to be here, and these people are still going to be here, and we want answers. Thank you so much, and I hope that you will find it in your hearts to do what is right, because we're not going away. This will continue to be covered in the news, etc. Make the right choice.
Thank you. Darlene Clark?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here on behalf of my mother. She's 73 years old. She lives, in her apartment, two-family house alone. She had received a water bill for over $3,000. This is the second one that she's received, and we just can't figure out why. We've never had a bill this high. I do all of her finances for her, and I was shocked and stunned. I hope that, someone looks into this so that we can figure out what's going on. I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to start. People contacted me. I saw it in the paper, and then I was contacted and, was told to come to the meeting. So hopefully we're being heard, because I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do for her. And now she received a delinquent bill, and to make arrangements because she can't afford to pay. And I'm just concerned about the next bill that comes out. So thank you. I appreciate your listening.
Thank you. John Tully?
Thank you. I'm Dr. John Tully. I live at 242 Eddie Glover Boulevard. I was a member of the Redistricting Commission. I'd first like to thank my fellow commissioners for their time and dedication in this important effort. I speak in favor of the ward map before you for many reasons. It was an outgrowth of work done by our Republican and Democratic registrars of voters. Both are elected officials of different parties, but called upon by their offices to respect, above all, the sanctity and importance of voting as the vital element in our democratic system. They come to this effort after many decades of working for what they believe is in the best interest of the citizens of New Britain. And while they may disagree on other policies related to city business, I saw firsthand as the head moderator of elections how they protect the important right to vote. The arguments made in the meetings of the commission in support of this map have been clear, precise, and related directly to our charge under the charter. The map meets all the criteria set forth in the charter. First, the districts are of substantially equal population and otherwise consistent with all federal and state statutory requirements. 2, the districts, to the extent possible, maintain the integrity of recognized neighborhood planning areas. 3, the districts are geographically contiguous and compact. And finally, 4, they are consistent with existing legislative districts. The other proposals failed to meet all 4 of these requirements. We should find broad areas of agreement within city government across the political divide. We need to educate our children, keep our safe drinking water, maintain public health and safety, and other vital efforts we can only do together. We may disagree about how to accomplish those goals, but we should not disagree about the need for those goals. And all of that depends on every citizen's ability to participate fully in the electoral process. That solemn responsibility starts with lines that are not drawn to fit a political agenda. Is this map perfect? No. Does the map reflect a bipartisan effort to present our fellow citizens with a map that makes sense given its geographic boundaries? Yes. Will tinkering and/or a rejection of this map by the council undermine our fellow citizens' trust in the democratic process? If done to support the fortunes of a particular party, most emphatically yes. I therefore urge you to vote in favor of the submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Strong?
Good evening. I just wanted to start by reiterating what some of the other folks were saying in the beginning in public participation. In terms of transparency, I think a lot of the points made are really worth looking at. Every year when the budget comes out, I look at it line by line as a resident. I want to know where my tax money is going. And it is confusing. Just like she said, it's not even in a searchable format, which means if you're looking for a particular line item, you literally have to go through all 300 pages. So I'm really glad that was pointed out. There are a lot of things that can be fixed with the city website and all those things, so I really want to confirm that. But I am here today to also speak on the high water bills and underscore the importance of taking action. As Candace said, the mayor does have the power to call a special meeting for the Water Board Commission, and I think that this is essential because we can cancel meetings, but at the end of the day, these bills are due. People's houses are on the line. People's livelihoods are on the line. We're all struggling right now. We've talked about inflation in this room so many times. We've talked about how that impacts city services. That's impacting our residents. So I really hope that you all push and support resolving this issue, because now we're at, 143 residents? It's no longer an anomaly, so I hope we can address it. Thank you.
Nate Simpson?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Simpson. I live at 185 Brook Street. Just a correction to the sign up. It says 407 Monroe, but it's just a friend
I got it.
making wrong assumptions. Thank you. So I'm here to speak on the water bill issue. I'm here to stand in solidarity with the residents that are experiencing these hard times. And their grievances do need to be heard. Our city charter outlines that the mayor has the ability to call the meeting as a special meeting and require attendance, and our residents do need to be heard. They are facing injustice regarding their tax bills, and just like with Board of Assessment appeals, I think they deserve a separate board that is not appointed by the mayor. So one, I do call on the mayor to exercise her power in that regard, and two, I really hope to see that our city comes up with a system that doesn't allow the executive branch of our government, no matter who's in power, right, that allows our executive government to essentially look at itself and say, oh, we didn't do anything wrong, it's on the residents. And right now we have a system that allows that because the water department operates under Public Works, which operates under the mayor's office. And the board that people turn to sort of either combat these bills or reason with the city on their thinking is also appointed by the mayor. So we have the executive branch looking at itself and clearing itself of any wrongdoing. That's just not transparent, it's not democratic, and we have systems that establish a precedence for the separation of this, and that is the Board of Assessment Appeals, because the assessor's office operates through the mayor's office, but when residents feel that their taxes are wrong or that they deserve an adjustment on them, they turn to the democratically elected by the people Board of Assessment Appeals. And I think having a system in place that mirrors that type of power structure would go a long way for our residents, especially here. So with that, I yield the rest of my time, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Brian, is it Chong?
Good evening, Council. My name is Brian Chong, and I live at 407 Monroe Street. I'm here speaking today to stand in solidarity with the residents who are facing unaffordable water bills. As many others have noted, this is fast becoming a crisis, and indeed, with the liens and the accruing interest that residents are facing, this is becoming an attack on not just one, but actually two fundamental rights that people should have, which is the right to water and the right to safe and secure housing. And as many others have noted, the mayor has the power to call a water board meeting immediately and as soon as possible to help redress these issues. This is fast becoming a crisis. And this council and the mayor has the power to resolve this before it becomes too late, before people lose their homes and harms our community health overall. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That's all that have signed up. Are there any other? Good luck. From Alderman Carlosi.
Leader Dyson, President Smedley, Alderman. My name is Carlo Carlozzi, 547 Slater Road. Through the clerk, I have some handouts. Did you get it set? I have some handouts for everybody. You all have been discussing compensation of elected and appointed officials. And I served on many compensation committees during my time on the council. And I'm handing out a resolution that was done in March of 2015. The council passed it on to the Administration, Finance, and Law Committee. And when you look at it, you will see that at that time, we were doing structured, phased-in raises for the elected officials. In 2015, there would have been a 5% increase in 20 over the years. Unfortunately, that particular proposal never saw the light of day because it failed at Administration, Finance, and Law. My good friend Alderman Pabon was on the Compensation Committee with me at the time, and I think he's the only one here that was on the council at that time. I believe Alderman Smedley, you came on in the fall of that year. Alderman Catanzaro, you were not there, yeah. So, and I did some simple math. At the time when we did this in 2015, the mayor's salary was $87,634, and it had been at that point since 2007. If those phases had all gone into place, if we had done all of those incremental increases, the mayor's salary today would be $101,507. So right now, what you have before you is not too far off from what it would have 2015. The reason why we did this in 2015 is because so many councils before, over the years, just looked at the compensation of elected officials as a political football, right? Nobody wanted to touch it. Stay away from it. If you do it, someone's going to attack you for you. You might lose the next election. And it's not a way to handle compensation for elected officials. It's just not the right way to do it. There are also two theories. You run for public office, you already know what the compensation is. The other theory is, well, you have to pay them enough to attract good people to run for office, because certainly there's a lot of work involved. So I would say to you, this should have, I wish that this had happened then, and I think that what you have before you should go into effect, and I would urge its adoption. I also want to thank the redistricting committee for their work on the wards. Some people may not necessarily like how some of the lines are drawn, but I think as they stated, it met all four of the criteria that they needed to. Alderwoman Costa, it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be 17 polling places or 11. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Yes.
Seth Miller, 428 Lewis Road. I do not have a large water bill. I have had experiences with large water bills. I've also had experiences with the huge liens that are put on these water bills. And it's the lien that creates the peril for the homeowner, because there are companies out there that will go and snatch up those liens, foreclose, and take the house. We need to protect the homeowners. We need to protect those people. I would suggest that we at least consider suspending the liening and for collection action, prevent all collection action until such time as this issue is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Second time, any other speakers? Third time, any other speakers? Seeing none, this public participation portion is closed at 7:25. Any council members wish to speak? Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, sir. Just want to address two items that came up. The first related to the Water Commission meeting. That was a direct oversight that the meeting was scheduled for this evening. There is a city ordinance that prevents any commission or city meeting from being scheduled on the same day as a council meeting. And I say that because a majority of the council members who are sitting here today wanted to attend that Water Commission meeting to hear what you all had to say about your water bills. So please understand that that was a direct oversight on the backside. It was scheduled mistakenly for this evening. It will be immediately rescheduled in May, and it will be properly noticed. We do have to notice meetings like that legally and with a certain amount of time. So I do apologize on behalf of the council that we had to order that meeting to be canceled this evening. It wasn't to push anybody down the road or to hide anybody from being able to speak. It was solely a direct oversight, and I will take responsibility for that as the president of the council. So it will be rescheduled in May. The second item I want to address is the budget book. We feel the same way. We get the same budget book that you see online. I get the same budget book at work from the school district. Accounting software is just that. It's accounting software. It's not designed to print out an Excel database of data that you can easily search or find. If you had a copy of the accounting software, yeah, you could easily search for something, but to be honest with you, we don't even get that. I'll show you in our mailboxes, we get a book this thick as well, printed out. So I feel your pain on that. I do apologize. It is broken down. There's a legend in the front of the book that shows you, or a key, excuse me, it'll show you on what page what department is located. And of course, any of us are happy to answer questions if you need help locating where something is in that budget book. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to speak about several issues. First of all, the water bill. It's not going to go away. And the residents you see here are upset. And despite the miscalculation of postponing it to today, it's still unjustified that I'm sure the Water Commission knows about dates. But let me give you some numbers. So just about 40 residents that owe more than $1,000 this past year, total owe more than $500,000. We have, I believe, 22 in collections, 14 in foreclosures, and 7 lien sold, and we heard what's happening with sold. So a total of close to 30% might lose their homes, are continuing to accrue interest as this postponed to May, and they're going to continue paying for that. The average own about $3,900, and the median is $2,100. We look at the map of the distribution of that, and interestingly enough, between Allen Street and Main Street, there's nobody. Almost nobody has a water bills over $1,000, and that raises the issue why. Is there something about those areas versus the others? The 2/3 of the 140 that owes over $1,000 are in the south. Towards the New Britain High School in this area, and the other third is in the north. And certain streets are more likely to have it than others. All of these research that has been done suggests something is going on rather than arbitrarily or some reluctant people, residents who are misusing their water. Beyond the hearing on the water board, what needs to be done is a serious research on this. And we also need to take out the hearings when residents have concerns. They need to be able to go to a commission that is independent, perhaps appointed by the state, that review that and keep the water department accountable. It's time we keep the water department accountable. I learned more as we were doing more research on water. New Britain is one of the few towns in Connecticut that owns its own water system. If you go to West Hartford, there's MDC, I believe, corporations that are managed and are accountable to the state of Connecticut. So there is accountability there. And if residents have an issue in West Hartford, they know where to go, and the state might hold the MDC accountable. Not here. You go to the Attorney General, he says, there's nothing I can do. The city has total autonomy over, so in other words, the residents are are basically in mercy of the water department. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable and has to change. So I call again to, I tried twice to make an amendment to the water, the water city ordinance, that when they get an unusual bill, they'll have 90 days to fix it, and they won't have to pay until they find what the problem is. 90 days. It was tabled by the Consolidated Committee. The last meeting, I tried to untable it unsuccessfully. So my fellow members here who claim to want to help the residents on water bills have not come up, didn't show their vote to support my untabling. You have another chance. The next Consolidated, I will try again to untable it, and let's see what you do then. But just to say you care about residents, show your work. Show that you care, not just words. So this is for the water bill. Regarding the city website, I also looked at the city website, and a lot of things in the new website are still not posted. If you want to do a FOIA, there's nothing there, no forms. A lot of different forms don't exist. City website needs to be reorganized, even though we have a new one. There needs to be somebody in charge that does that on a regular basis. Finally, I want to comment about my friend and fellow Democrat, Carlo Carlosi, about the compensation. And I understand we need to be competitive. However, last year we gave 13% increases, and other than promoting giving increase to common council members, yes, me too, but for $3,500, I don't think too many people would like to do this job over a whole year, and increase them to $5,000 would be way overdue after 20 years. Other than that, maybe the treasurer, I don't think the other increases are justified at this moment. We're heading towards a big deficit. The second most highest item on our budget is paying for our debt. While many residents have lost their houses, lost their jobs, are still potentially losing their houses because of water bills, to raise our budget by more than $90,000, by total of $90,000 a year because of the raises, is unjustified, and I'm voting against that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other? Alderman Costa.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate your participation, as always. Thank you, Ms. Scott. It's my understanding that no one loses their homes for water and sewer liens. I don't know that that's ever happened, so I'd like to ask that question at the next Water Commission. I'd like to know and understand that better. I've never heard or seen that happen, so if you can cite specifics, I'd really love to know that. We've had this water conversation for a long time now. I agree. We all need to come together at that Water Commission meeting and find out what is going on. My understanding of the process, and because we've had this conversation so many times, is that it's pretty individual. It's specific. Each individual scenario is handled on its own. So the process begins with a complaint, which is brought to the attention of the board for resolution. An investigation begins with gathering information on the account, and I don't know what that investigation consists of. So I'm looking forward to going to the Water Commission meeting and understanding that better. Assessing billing records, reviewing the history of the account, possibly doing physical inspection of the home, removing the old meter and testing its accuracy, all if this is required. So I'm just going through a list that I was provided for what the process is when a complaint comes in about a water bill. Once the information is gathered, it is brought to the board for a decision, and the timeline for resolution can vary depending on the complexity of the complaint. We do care, I care very much about people being burdened by bills that they shouldn't have, that don't equate to what they're actually using. It's water and sewer, to answer your question, and it is usage. So that's what the bill is comprised of, and we certainly, I don't want to receive a large water bill. So we certainly want to make sure if there's a broader issue that we're addressing that issue, but it's my understanding, at least through this process, that these were individual issues being handled on an individual basis. Like all of you, I'm looking forward to participating in the next Water Commission meeting. And I have everybody's name. I hope that you'll reach out to me. I've offered before. I never hear from anyone. I wish someone would call me and talk to me about, I'm not the most popular girl up here, I know that. I just wish somebody would call me and talk to me about their specific issue. It would help me to be able to help you to get involved on a personal level. So please, 860-817-0745, please call me. Mr. Carlozzi, thank you very much for your support with the compensation. I'm the new girl, and the compensation experience was an opportunity for learning. And I think that we all worked well together. So thank you for your support on that. And then, Mr. Tully, you're always so eloquent. Thank you so much for, those words and all of the work on the redistricting map. I know, as I said before, this was a labor of love, and we're grateful for all that you all did with the many versions and finally getting us to a place that made sense, an equitable place, a bipartisan place. We appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you. Any other members? Seeing none, I too want to thank you for your participation. It's very much appreciated. The mayor will be here shortly to start the meeting. Thank you again.
If all alderpersons could start making their way to their seats, I'd like to begin. All right, I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the New Britain Common Council. The date is April 27th, 2022. The time is 7:46 p.m. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderpersons Dyson. Here. Ayalon. Here. Catanzaro.
Here.
Costa. Here. Hargraves. Here. Malinowski. Here. Ortiz Luna.
Excused.
Pabon. Here. Russell. Here. Rutkowski.
Here.
Sanchez. Here. Skirpo.
Excused.
Segura. Thompson.
Present.
Smedley.
Present.
12 present, Your Honor.
All right, can we all please rise for the invocation, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. O God, our Heavenly Father, bless our New Britain community. We ask that you provide us with a sunny, warm weekend so our Hoops for Homeless 3-on-3 basketball tournament on Main Street can attract people statewide. Protect some of our injury, as some think they still have game. We ask this in thy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That will be fun to watch. Before we start the regular meeting this evening, we do have a special presentation, and our friends from the Mattabesett District are here tonight, and we have John Dunham here, who is the board president of Mattabesett, and also Art Simonian, who's going to give us a brief presentation about the, I was going to say decrease this year, but I know, sorry, I know, it was a good one. It was a good thought. Please, you can approach and discuss. You just have to push the, there you go.
How's that? Is that better?
Great.
Art Simonian from the Mattabesett Sewer District, and as you know, John Dunham, our board chairman, is here with me as well. We've been coming each year, I think for the past 4 or 5 years, presenting a brief overview of the Mattabesett sewer budget. Just kind of some highlights and overview. Mattabesett is the sewer treatment plant that New Britain, Berlin, Cromwell, and now Middletown, who fully joined the district a few years ago, contribute to sewer flow for treatment. It's located in Cromwell, Connecticut. It was formed in the mid-1960s, constructed in 1968 to take care of the sewage needs for mostly New Britain at that time, Berlin and Cromwell, who are considered the charter members, the 3 charter members. So what we do each year is we present a kind of a high-level overview of the budget. I did provide some detailed sheets in your packages, I believe, that you received, and talk about some of the significant impacts of the budget. This year, some of the major drivers had to do with high electricity. We're anticipating gas, natural gas, which is a major driver for electricity going up pretty substantially. Pension retirements from the state. We participate in the MERV, MERF plan, I think the same as New Britain. And capital expenditures also, we have some pretty major projects planned for next year. So the budget went up about, and I'm going to get to the number there in a second. New Britain is kind of fortunate in a way. When Middletown joined the district, they paid a buy-in fee for that, and New Britain's been receiving some credits for that each year. So that's helping to offset the budget increase. The budget went up this year about 5.6% to $17.7 million total budget. And without capital and electricity, I kind of show those numbers just to give you an idea of what the operating part of the budget is. If you took out electricity, which again is a pretty major driver, the budget went up about 3.5%. So we try to be responsible that way as much as we can. But again, this year, with the capital infrastructure that's needed over the next few years. On the plus side, our debt service is going down. We were able to refinance. We have a $80 million Clean Water Fund loan from the state of Connecticut. And with the interest rates dropping pretty significantly on the private side, we're able to refinance about $21 million of that loan. We refinanced it, and it's going to save the district and obviously our member communities about $1 million over the next 20 years. So that's one of the benefits of that refinancing. This year, I mentioned about Middletown's buy-in fee. New Britain's getting a credit of about $550,000 on their assessment. So the assessments you see here on the sheets are reflective of that credit. I was just looking at some of the numbers over the past about 7 years since 2016. New Britain received about $7 million in credits from that Middletown buy-in. When Middletown fully joined the district, they paid about $13 million, and it's proportioned and appropriated to the charter members, Berlin, New Britain, Cromwell, through credits each year until that's drawn down. And so New Britain is set to receive in total about $9.7 million when it's all finished and done in 2030. New Britain's assessment did go up quite a bit. I think it's fair to say that. Some of that is due to the budget increase, but a good part of it, about 3% of the increase, is due to that credit going down. And the credit goes down each year for all the communities because it's on a sliding scale. This year, New Britain's credit of $550,000 is $145,000 less than it was last year. And that's no fault of New Britain, no fault of anybody. That's just the way the credits were structured when they were formed. New Britain's still going to get their $9.7 million when all is said and done, but I think it's fair to show that in there. And if you factor in that credit, if it stayed the same as last year, New Britain's increase this year, which I'll say softly is about 7.6%, would only be about 5.5% if that credit stayed the same. So that tends to skew some of the numbers. Berlin, as a side note, their increase went up 9.2%. That's mostly due two reasons. One is the credit as well. Berlin is a charter member, but also their flows increased. So you're going to hear some talk about infiltration and inflow, and I know New Britain's doing some work on that, and I'm hoping that it's going to help things reduce the flows, because that actually really skews who pays a higher proportion of the budget. Cromwell, which is a relatively newer community in terms of their infrastructure, they don't have a lot of I&I flow, so their bills are pretty consistent. Their rates went up about 6% this year, 6.4%. So that's kind of some of the high-level overviews. Some of the positive things we are doing in the last few years, we do have, we're on a demand response program for our electricity. So we have two 1.5 megawatt generators that power up the plant. And when ISO New England or Eversource says it's too hot, we need people to shed power off the grid, they call us and we run our generators. That generates about $100,000 a year for us in revenue. So that's something we're doing. Doesn't cost us anything other than a little bit of diesel fuel, but that's something we're doing to try to save some money. We just completed an energy performance project, upgraded all our lights to LEDs, put some energy efficient equipment, rooftop units, air handling units that should save us about $100,000 a year in electricity when it's all said and done. So we are trying to be conscious of where we can save money. Obviously, everyone knows what's going on with utilities. Chemicals is a big consumer of what we go through. Chemical prices have gone up almost 40% in the last couple months. So some of these budgets have by, hopefully mid next year, fiscal year, we'll be back to somewhat normal numbers on that. Some of the other highlights I'll mention is, our revenue, excess revenues from this year that ends in July. We expect to use about $500,000 to offset our budget increases. So we're going to use essentially retained earnings, for lack of a better word, about $500,000 to offset, to keep those assessments a little bit lower. New Britain pays about 30% of debt service as part of their assessment, even though what's called your reserve capacity is about 41%, and that's due to that Middletown buy-in fee. So that buy-in fee helps reduce what you pay for debt service. Reserve capacity is something I won't go into too much about, but it's basically a set number of what your reserve flows are of what's been allocated, and that changes about every 20 to 30 years. So, so each community gets a reserve capacity, and that factors into the debt part of the budget and the capital. The operating part of the budget is significantly impacted by your flows, your 5-year average flows. So that's why it's important to work to get your I&I, your infiltration inflow numbers down. And I think there's been some federal money put aside for some of the communities. I think New Britain got some federal money, so hopefully that'll translate to some positive things. The other thing I put in here that's kind of a good thing, it's a budget comparison, and it goes back to 2014 all the way to 2023, our new budget here. And the average increase in the last, since 2017, has been about 3.7% for Mattabesett. And New Britain's average increase during that same period is about 3.1%. So, you know, if you look at year to year, things may change quite a bit. A lot of it's due to that credit that I mentioned, and this year because of our significant capital. But over the course of the past 7 years, it's been about a 3.1% increase. And obviously where we can cut things and look for energy savings or other ways to save, we will continue to do that in the future. And again, John Dunham is here. He may want to add anything from the board's perspective, and then certainly open up to any questions.
Yes, John Dunham. I'm from 165 Oak Ridge Drive in Berlin. The only thing I'll add, Art covered everything, I think, pretty well. Talked about the energy improvements we've been trying to make, trying to drive some savings there. We funded that project with some of our reserve money, so we didn't have to go borrow money and pay interest on that. We used our own funds and been paying that back, so I think that was a help. And the other is it was about a year and a half ago, we negotiated a 4-year agreement with our unions. That was prior to a lot of this inflationary pressure that's happened in the economy. I think we were able to get a pretty decent deal with them and lock in for 4 years. So I think salaries, which is a big driver of our costs over there, other than, as Art mentioned, electricity and capital. So we're conscious of people's pocketbooks and wallets, and we really do try and keep our budget increases as minimal as possible. But there is a cost to doing business and keeping the environment clean. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Art. I'll open it up for questions for council members. I see Alderman Ayalon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Maybe just a few basic things for many of us who've never been in a meeting in Mattabesett, perhaps don't know where it exactly is. How many people work? How many employees?
So at Mattabesett, which is in Cromwell, Connecticut, just off of Route 9 before the Aragoni Bridge, you'll see it on the right side, or I guess the west side of Route 9. We have 35 employees, which includes 2 part-time employees as well. And we also sometimes retain some summer help or seasonal help when necessary. So 35 essentially.
35 employees. How many, so if it's called the district, I guess the number one is the superintendent?
I'm the executive director. We have an office manager in terms of the admin, and then there's an operations manager, controls more of the general operations, and then a maintenance manager. So those are the kind of 2 main departments. We have 3 shifts, second and third shift. We have to be there 24/7. There's only a couple people on second and third shift. The first shift, we have about, counting the maintenance department, about 25 people working at one time.
So why, I understand like the fire department have shifts 24/7. Why is there a need for a 24/7 shift?
It's a requirement because of the type of wastewater plant we are. It's the classification we're in. We're the 3rd largest wastewater plant in the state of Connecticut. We also have an incinerator that runs 24/7 that burns the solids, the sludges. You may hear the news about other states are having trouble getting rid of their biosolids. They used to land farm them for agricultural purposes because biosolids, which are the solid waste, are very good for farming. But now with PFAS, which is that contaminant from firefighting foams and other chemicals in plastics and coatings, they're starting to ban it. Maine has just passed a ban that you can no longer land farm solids. So these other states like Massachusetts, and fortunately, and that's very expensive right now. Fortunately, we have an incinerator. we're one of 5 plants in the state of Connecticut that do have an incinerator, so other plants come to us and we burn their sludges for them, their solids, and we generate about $1 million in revenue doing that.
See, so the incinerator, does it produce carcinogens and other, what you burn, and what's the particles that come out of the burning?
So it has to meet the most stringent federal regulation. We're the first in the country to meet what's called the quad canister system, pretty large system that scrubs out any metals, particulates. It does have to meet all federal regulations and as well as state of Connecticut. So we get tested every year to make sure we do meet that. So it's essentially, it's the ash that gets burnt. It's the byproduct of the ash that's burning that gets out of the emission system, but it's completely scrubbed, and again, we have all data that shows it meets all the federal regulations.
So why is we are only one of 5 that have a
That's a good question.
Incinerator.
I think you're going to start seeing more incinerators being constructed because of that need. The permitting process is very challenging. They're expensive, costs about $26 million to build a new incinerator. And in the state of Connecticut, you're required to either burn your sludges if you're one of the 130 plants in Connecticut, or you have to take it out of state. And now with all the pressures about disposing out of state, there's probably gonna be more pressure put on incineration within the state. So why there's only 5, we had one, Mattabessett's had one since 1968, since construction, so, of the original plant. So, again, I think it's the cost of it, plus you don't need 130 incinerators in the state of Connecticut. I think DEP rather manage a smaller amount and have them be more like a community system where they serve others.
Okay. So, and Mattabesset is a joint district, right, but I saw there also MDC mentioned. MDC is not a city, a town. So
No,
why is that?
MDC is not part of Mattabesset. They have a small connection from the area near, off the Berlin Turnpike near Home Depot and in Berlin, and also where Stu Leonard's is. That part of the MDC system ties into our trunk line.
Okay.
Very small part, and we charge them. They get part of the assessment too as well each year. But the rest of MDC goes to either the Rocky Hill plant that they have or the Hartford plant or one of their others.
So you mentioned that there are about 4 or 5 managers and the rest are employees underneath. What is the typical, what do they do? Are they sitting in front of computers and looking, or are they working with manual labor? What kind of work they do?
So the managers, I'm the executive director, I'm overall responsible for the entire, plant operations and people in the office. We also have a bookkeeper and secretary and an office manager. The plant people do a combination of things. They're actually managing a lot of their work through a computer system called SCADA,
Okay.
which is, I know we're setting up a tour for some people to come visit our plant in the very near future. But SCADA is a computer control system that manages the whole entire plant operations. But you physically have to go around and check everything all the time because there's always adjustments being made. There could be problems. You have to physically see what's going on too. So their work is a combination of, managing things on a computer system, but also doing a lot of physical maintenance work as well, both from the operations department and the maintenance department. 100 work tickets a month that they work on in terms of repairing things, fixing pumps, sending things out for rebuild. There's a lot of components. This plant has a value of about $130 million is the insurance value of it, and there's a lot of components to it, not just piping, but a lot of pumps and blowers and things like that to keep this going. So, we're actually we were rated probably in the top. I think it was the top 10. It was on our website and our newsletter. I think it used to cost us about $1.10 per 1,000 gallons to treat wastewater. We're one of the top 10% in the country in terms of lowest cost. 35 is a pretty reasonable number. I was at another plant in Massachusetts that a little bit larger than us, and they had about 45 people working there full time.
Last question. what happens if, you know, we're anticipating with climate change that big storms and floods, and we see flood every year. What happens if what kind of flood, let's say, would overwhelm the plant? And what do we do if that happens?
So that's a good question. We're pushing our communities, and John and I have been going to all the budget meetings, but and really pushing the communities about getting rid of reducing their infiltration inflow. And for a 30-second overview of what infiltration inflow is, basically the sewer pipes are underground, and as they get older, sometimes the joints start leaking, and groundwater, certainly during rainstorm events, could get into those joints, or the more likely case is that people have their stormwater drainage systems from their homes or businesses tied into the sewer system. That was actually encouraged years and years ago. Hartford, that's where all their flows went to, but that's actually a bad thing nowadays. It's a bad thing for wastewater plants, and I think New Britain's been pretty aggressive at trying to get people to separate that, keep their stormwater from their sump drains in their basements and their roof leaders out of the sewer system. That causes these excessive flows. Our capacity of our plant is about 110 million gallons per day. We've hit that number many times, unfortunately, probably half a dozen times in the last couple of years. That happens, we have to partially treat our flows. We meet all our permit numbers in terms of the quality going to the river, but we can only partially treat our flows. That's one of the conversations we're having with Connecticut DEP right now about our permit renewal. They want us to treat all our flows fully. So when we partially treat, we have to send part of the flows through one part of the system and the rest of the flows through the entire treatment system. What would happen is if, let's say, New Britain's flows exceeded the capacity of our sewer pipe, the interceptor that runs about 9 miles from New Britain to Cromwell, it would actually back up into your own sewer system here in the city streets and eventually back into your manholes and probably into your homes and businesses. Our pipe system could only take so much, and once it gets to that point, it's not going to overflow at our plant. It's going to overflow up gradient of us before it gets to us.
So we're going to get sewer water.
Yeah, but our plant, though, is built above the 500-year floodplain, correct?
Yes.
So the plant cannot flood, right? So that was your original question, what would happen if there was a flood, right? And that would be the Connecticut River if it rose up. There's your 100-year floodplains that DEEP has maps on, then you have your 500-year floodplains, and our plant is built above the 500-year floodplain. So there's no danger of the plant ever getting overtaken by a flood, in which case that would be an environmental catastrophe. It would just be the surcharging of the line that Art's talking about. We've had rainstorms of very high intensity over the last 55 years that we've been in service, and I don't think there's ever an occurrence where we've surcharged the line to the point where homes have flooded, other than an individual problem on a collection system within your collection system that you guys own.
Yeah.
So I think the danger of a flood is
And let me just
not even really existent, in my opinion.
let me just clarify too that the 100-year flood zone does partially run through our property, but the plant itself, the majority of the plant is above that. And the other thing that we added with this $100 million upgrade we did is a pumping station. So if the Connecticut River flows are very high, this pumping station raises the elevation of the effluent river, so it has enough head pressure to push against that higher flows in the Connecticut River. That was added 6, 7 years ago, and that would help in the event of a major storm or a flood where the Connecticut River is up very high. We could still feed the effluent into the Connecticut River without any concerns about it backing up.
So what the underlining message I heard from you saying is that the cities and town around need more permeable surfaces as one way to prevent the flooding, right?
Well, they need to reduce that infiltration inflow. If we just had to deal with the base flows from New Britain, Berlin, Cromwell, we'd be able to handle our flows every day. It wouldn't matter what happens during a storm event because your flows wouldn't change that much. It's not realistic to say you're going to get rid of all those extraneous flows. It's just nearly impossible because of the age of the systems and the design of it. But you know, if you could reduce it 30, 40% from what it is now, that would be significant. We wouldn't have these wet weather events, and you'd probably see your assessments go down. And unfortunately, it affects the other towns that have to pay a higher assessment because we have a kind of a fixed budget, so it's just a matter of who pays what portion, but it would help you in the long run.
Thank you, Barry.
And I'm going to do my 30-second commercial for the NB Flush program, which is geared directly at reducing our infiltration and inflow, a $90 million system that we are trying desperately to get fully funded by the Recovery Act money.
That's perfect.
Which will hopefully have you guys come here and give us a decrease in a budget one year, which maybe
I
I'm
hope
being
to
a
be
little
around
bit-
for that time before I retire.
I know, it's probably impossible, but it is exactly why that program is imperative that we fund. Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to give a small 30-second infomercial as well for our safety valve insurance program. It's important to get that and install a backflow preventer in your house to prevent said surge of pipe from coming back into your house. It's an important thing that we offer here in the city. I know a lot of residents take advantage of it, but a lot don't either, and it's very important you get that little flyer in the mail. Please do that. Art and John, thank you very much for your presentation. You guys have a shitty job that nobody wants. And
Thanks for recognizing that.
Thank you. But I'll be here all night. I just want to take a second to recognize Miss Mary Morocco and Dan Salerno, former Alderman Dan Salerno, who are on the Mattabesset board on our behalf. Miss Morocco stepped out; she was here. But thank you for your presentation. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely, and what we're faced with some of the same challenges I'm sure the city's facing with staffing too. I didn't really talk too much about that, but we're facing a retirement. I wouldn't call it a cliff like the state has, but certainly about a 30 to 40% retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. So getting people attracted into this industry as much as Alderman Smedley described it so well. We have a concerted effort. We're working with our whole New England Water Environmental Group on just that thing itself, just how to attract more people into this industry. And we're going into the high school. We have Britain High School's been here for tours, and we're going to the middle schools, trying to get people at a young age, because it is a pretty nice, I'll do my 2-minute plug too, it is a pretty nice industry to be into. With technology nowadays, it's not like it was years ago. The plant doesn't, knock on wood, smell as bad as it maybe used to years ago. So, but it is a better industry to be in than it was years ago. So we're hoping to attract some younger, older people into this industry.
Except when you're driving down Route 9 on a humid summer day.
Shut off your air conditioner.
Alderman Catanzaro.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hey, Art.
Paul, how are you?
Long time no see.
Yes.
I know. I had the pleasure of serving on the Mattabesset board for a while, and I learned a lot. It's, if you get a chance to have the tour, do it. It's pretty amazing. Nobody ever thinks what happens when you flush a toilet. It's a huge process. And before I ask any questions, just a comment. When they did the big renovation and the new incinerator, it was state-of-the-art. And other facilities around the country were contacting us on what to do and how to do it. We really set the stage for that. So, they do an incredible job, and the safety is second to none, and all the permits, and believe me, nothing goes by the state or the feds. They're under the gun all the time to make sure that things run properly, and they do. Mattabesset's at its full flow now. Middletown.
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct.
They're fully connected.
Middletown was fully connected in December 2019.
Finally, yeah, it took a long time to get those
Correct.
pumps going or whatever, I remember. Okay. And electricity's always been a huge issue there, the cost. And I know when I was there, we talked about the fuel cells quite a bit, and panels. Is there any look at that again or anything to offset some of the?
So we do have a solar panel on one of our buildings that generates a little bit of electricity and some clean energy rec credits, a couple $1,000s a quarter. I know we get back for that. But the fuel cell, we did pass that through the engineering committee a number of times, and it's been a little bit problematic in terms of the arrangements with the number of players. There was like 13 entities involved, LLCs and venture capitalists that just, and the amount of money that was actually going to save us wasn't enough really to justify the risk per se. So, we decided to go with the energy project and also the demand response, which generates about the same amount of money. Whether we revisit that again at some point, I think we'll look at that, but there are some risks that just weren't comfortable absorbing.
Sure, I understand that. I just want to make the
Financial risk.
point that the board is constantly looking for ways to save money. All the time I was there, that was a constant, that they would always, because they know, electricity and gas are huge, huge costs. So I thank you. I thank you for what you do. It was always a pleasure being there. I learned a lot. I used to go home with headaches because I'm not a number guy and there's a lot of numbers. But again, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alderman Catanzaro. Any other alderperson wish to address him? Thank you both very much for
All
being
right.
here this evening.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, I'll see you
All
guys
right,
soon.
thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you. There are no minutes and no amendments to the agenda this evening, so we're
That's
going to go
correct.
right into petitions.
Yes, Your Honor, we have three. First one's from Alderman Ialone for the appropriate departments to conduct a study to determine if the parking restrictions in front of 600 Arch Street need to be upgraded to no parking between signs, as residents have complained that bakery customers continually park in front of their driveway, blocking access to their residence.
We'll send that to the police commission.
Okay. Second one is signed by Alderwoman Costa for Ortiz Luna for the appropriate departments to conduct a traffic study regarding speeding on Gladiola Street near 77 Gladiola Street.
To police commission, please.
Okay. Number three, Alderman Ialone for the appropriate departments to conduct a traffic study on South Street near Stanley Street intersections.
We'll send that to the police commission as well.
That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept the consent agenda of items A, B, and C.
I have a second by Alderman Thompson. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderpersons Dyson.
Yes.
Ialon.
Yes.
Catanzaro.
Yes.
Costa. Hargraves. Malinowski. Pabon. Russell. Rutkowski.
Yes.
Sanchez. Thompson.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
12-0, Your Honor.
Motion carries. We're going to move on to our resolutions this evening. Resolution number 1.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept and adopt resolution number 1.
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Ialon.
Thank you, Your Honor. The briefest, easiest way I can explain this is to say that the Reappointment Commission of the Connecticut General Assembly adopted a redistricting plan of General Assembly following the completion of the decennial census for the United States. And as required by our city charter, the council is required to appoint a districting commission, districting plan of the General Assembly, and the districting commission shall report to the Common Council no later than 70 days the recommended boundaries of the 5 Common Council wards, which are going to be moving forward. Ward 1 comprised of, generally speaking, the west end, the southern, southwestern portion of the city, and most of the district. Ward 2 will comprise of, generally speaking, the east side of the city, including a portion of the 27th Assembly District. Ward 3 shall comprise of, generally speaking, the downtown area and western portion of the 25th Assembly District. Ward 4 will comprise of, generally speaking, northern portion of the city, including CCSU, the Belvedere section, and most of the 26th Assembly District. And Ward 5 will comprise of, generally speaking, the northwestern portion of the city. And I just want to mention that I do want to thank all of the folks who participated on this commission. I know they met multiple times, had lengthy discussions, reviewed multiple maps, and have come to what is probably the best solution for everyone in our city at this point based on what the state requires us to do. So I do urge adoption.
Thank you, Alderman Smedley. Are there any questions or comments on resolution number 1? Alderman Ialon.
I just want to say I support the, I wish it's not perfect. Like Ward 3, where I'm currently now, will be a little bit more isolated, I think, in the amount of perhaps minorities at the district. But overall, given all the other limitations of state, I think it's the best solution. What I also like is it's really by bipartisan, and, they answered all my questions in the committee, and so I will support it, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Alderman Ayalon. Any other questions or comments? I too would just like to echo the sentiments of thanking the commission members. It certainly is tough work. It's not easy to be tasked with doing this process. Inevitably, you're not going to make everybody happy, but I think that this was the best outcome and I gave to it. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Take a deep breath. Thank you. Resolution number 2, Alderman Malinowski.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the recommendations of the compensation.
Costa.
This is following the recommendations from the Compensation Committee. We met at the end of March, and it was the committee's recommendation to adjust the salaries of everyone that is included in this. It's a big job because they hadn't been touched for so long, so we're hoping that this gets us more back in line with what these positions deserve, and I urge adoption.
Thank you, Alderman Malinowski. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? Alderman Ayalon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, there was a lot of discussion I was in the Compensation Committee, I was in the other committee, I forget now, talking about, and so we had a lot of conversation on that. I expressed already what I believe. So I'll try one more time let's realize that if the Compensation Committee decided on nothing, then the majority here would have gotten a raise based on a connection to 1186 agreement. And I believe that the Chief of Staff, if I remember correctly, actually asked for that, for the raises for the mayor. My amendment is the only ones that really I believe deserve the increases are the Common Council, which hasn't gotten any raise for 20 years, and the mere 3,500, it's really nothing. And the treasurer, of course, as well, 2,400. The history is there, why it's where it is. I believe those. I move to amend this and to approve only the last 2 bullets, the treasurer and the Common Council, and eliminate the rest, which means that they will still get the 2.5%.
That is
So
not
they will
accurate.
still, I believe so.
That's not true.
So, well, that's what it said in the ordinance.
That's not true.
As far as I understand it. So I make that motion to accept only the last 2 and delete the rest. And can I get a second?
I don't hear a second, so I'm sorry, Alderman. It looks like your motion would fail. Is there any further discussion on the motion at hand? Alderman Dyson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with former Alderman Carlozzi. In the past, we had talked about it. I just think we need to stop having a football depending upon who's in the council at the given time. So that's not fair to make our employees at City Hall that have worked very hard to wonder about whether or not they're going to get a raise depending upon what's going on with the economy. So I'm in business. Yeah, I too have to struggle sometimes too, but it's not fair to my employees. It's right to give them what they're due, and I think I fully support it, and I thank those that worked on the Compensation Committee to get the numbers where they're supposed to be. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dyson. Alderwoman Costa.
Thank you. So we had very respectful conversations, both in compensation and AFL, to get to where we are today on compensation. Anytime we have to adjust salaries, which requires an increase or an impact to our budget, it's a little uncomfortable. We looked at this thoughtfully, So we looked at the number of years that there were no increases. We looked at the increases that did actually occur, and there were only two for certain positions over 23 years. Some of those positions didn't receive anything in 20 years. Some of those positions only received one increase in 20 years. The increases that those positions received were not equivalent to even a cost of living annually for all the years that they missed. We also were thoughtful in comparing this compensation to like positions in other towns similar to ours. So the numbers that we came to were not pulled out of the sky. We were thoughtful about it. We were educated when we made our recommendations, and excuse me, we, if it were up to me, these recommendations are even conservative for me. If it were up to me, we would have made maybe different recommendations. So these were certainly a compromise, but I do believe this gets us closer to where these positions should be. These positions have value. These increases are not being applied to people. They're actually being applied to these positions. And I'm just grateful for all of the help and guidance that we received through the process and all of the support that we've received tonight. So thank you all.
Thank you, Alderwoman Costa. Alderman Catanzaro.
Thank you, Your Honor. I rise in support. First, I'd like to commend the committee, specifically Alderman Malinowski, myself and Alderwoman Costa had some conversations, I have to say, and I'm glad I didn't bet any money on it because I would have lost. But I give her a lot of credit. They both worked very, very hard in getting this done. I guess I keep referring to my old stint on the council and how things would have never happened back then, but things are different. But I think you did a great job. I think it's fair, it's equitable, and I urge adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Catanzaro. Any other alderperson? Alderman Hargraves.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. So when we look at this resolution, the first four positions are full-time employees, often overseeing departments, or for the third bullet point, oversees the entire city. The mayor makes less than every department head currently right now, and is responsible for every department head and responsible for the operation of the city, as well as the town clerk and the tax collector who oversees those respective departments, and as well as the registrar of voters. And their salaries are very close, if not less than, the people that they supervise, which just doesn't make sense in how business operates. So these are reflective of current times. If things haven't changed much in 20 years, can you imagine salaries from 2002 to now? A lot of people got 2% raises every year, or whatever the case may be. So this reflects things that we missed over several years. So I definitely urge adoption. I support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other alderperson? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? For the record, Alderman Ayalon, motion carries. Resolution number 3, Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept and adopt resolution number 3.
Seconded by Alderman Thompson.
Thank you. This resolution will bring the salary, the documented salary in the resolution for the finance director to the range that it should be in. It should be noted that we are not providing a raise to this position, just that the ordinance has not been updated to reflect what the range of salary actually has been for the finance director position. So I do urge adoption.
Thank you, Alderman Smedley. Are there any questions or comments on this? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Ayalon, resolution number 4.
I make a motion to accept and adopt item number 4.
Second.
Second by Alderman Smedley.
So this is a resolution about the Arbor Day. And basically, Arbor Day has been practiced since 1872. And as we know, trees reduce carbon dioxide emission, increase oxygen, increase topsoil. There are really multiple benefits for trees. But I wanted to highlight also the importance of us in New Britain fighting climate change. So I brought here, if you can pass it around, for the resolution we passed about 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago, on climate change. And just for, especially for those who weren't here on the Common Council, where we, after interviewing experts, came up with specific suggestions for climate change, including creating a task force, having budget for more trees, speaking of Arbor Day, and increasing permeable spaces, municipal composting, and so on and so on. It was a great, and unfortunately we haven't seen much of it. I'm still waiting for a task force that will, we were the first one, by the way, in Connecticut to pass this, so I'm very proud of it. We passed it unanimously here. And we've had some beginning, you know, a few electric cars, you know, some other, there are some beginnings of that, but not to the extent that we are facing really a catastrophe here, a climate catastrophe. Sea raises for about 1 to 8 feet by the end of the century. And every level of government needs to do its job if we want to survive as a species. I urge the mayor, I urge the council to create a task force to combat climate change. It's here and now, and we see the results of that. As simply as created a budget for trees would go a long way. Last winter we cut more than 40 trees in A.W. Stanley. And maybe it was necessary, maybe it was not, but we need to replace them. And Arbor Day is a good time for us to do that. Individually, I contribute now to Arbor Day every year and receive some little trees plant in my backyard. So I urge everybody to practice what we preach. Thank you very much, and I urge adoption.
Thank you, Alderman, and I hope you'll consider attending one of our Smart City Committee meetings, which focuses specifically on energy, innovation, and sustainability, as we've been meeting for the last 5 years prior to this resolution. Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to touch on a few things that we have done that was mentioned in this resolution from a few years ago, just to bring everybody up to par. I'll start with the school district. We have continued to implement green initiatives. There are solar panels on Smith, DiLoretto, Smalley. The high school solar panel installation was decommissioned because it aged out, and I replaced that with a fuel cell. In addition to that, similar to the wastewater management department that we have, where they do the energy program, we do the same thing with the school district, and we do load shedding as well in our larger buildings during the summertime. In addition to that, one of the further resolved items in this, institute a composting program for municipal and school buildings to participate in a power purchasing agreement. I do know there are at least 2 or 3 schools that do have composting programs, and as a city, we are the owners of an anaerobic digester, which is pretty much a cow poop digester. And I know it's a lot of talk about poop here today, but we do earn energy credits off of that program. Make more greener spaces and tree canopies that can be created with the goal of reducing flooding during high water events, etc. We are consistently remodeling our parks, replanting trees. Stanley Quarter Park, as an example, just saw a vast improvement in the greenscape there. And Chesley Park is coming up. There'll be a huge improvement in that park as well. Not to mention the Willow Street Park entrance is in the near future going to be looked at and updated with more green space instead of parking lot. So a large majority of these items have been tackled. I forgot the fleet division. We just as a council approved 2 hybrid vehicles for the fleet division to be used by the meter maids in the city. So we are tackling this, And I too extend the invitation to my colleagues, all of them on the council, to attend the Smart City Initiative meetings where we do talk about this on a regular basis. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Alderman Smedley. Alderman Thompson?
Thank you, through your honor. I would just like to say for the cooperation between the mayor and Eversource, we have procured 68 new trees to be planted, all of 3 to 4 inch calibers, which are not anything to sneeze at. It was a $22,000 investment on Eversource. And I would like to thank the mayor for working with them and making that happen, and they will start being planted as of tomorrow morning.
Can't wait. See you there. Alderman Catanzaro.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, there is a plan. My 25 years in the Park Department, along with my colleague here, he was on the tree crew for a long time, and we cut down dead trees and trees that were diseased. And every year there is in the budget money to buy trees and replant. It's not always one for one, because they're not cheap. But if you look at Eddie Glover Boulevard, for instance, there was a lot of dead trees on those islands, and horrible sized trees. They weren't the right trees for that island, and they were all replaced with the proper sized trees. Same thing with the downtown area. We had the big trees in those little grates that were choking, and those were all been replaced with the proper sized trees. So as much as we can financially, we do. Believe me, we care about trees. We know it's the, it's the Earth's filter. Without trees, we can't breathe. We know that very, very well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the other alderperson was to address Alderman Dyson. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. No, just additionally to your initiative, Smart City Initiative, we started a Smart City and Energy Subcommittee this year. Trust me, we are looking at everything to conserve energy going forward for the city. And we're very active, looking at school buildings, looking at every building, we're parks, everything. So everything's on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Thompson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you, I make a motion to accept and adopt item number 5.
Seconded by Alderman Catanzaro.
All right, this is for New Britain to maintain the uniform policy of the Emergency Management Performance Grant, which will allow the city the ability to respond to all hazards and emergencies in coordination with multi-agencies. It's a grant given by the federal government, and we need to keep going with this and keep it going. So I urge adoption.
Thanks, Alderman Thompson. Are there any questions or comments on this? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Rutkowski, resolution number 6 tonight.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you, I'll make a motion to accept and adopt item number 6.
Seconded by Alderman Russell.
This is a right-of-way and sidewalk improvement program, 2022 to 2023, for the Public Works Department, and I urge adoption.
Thank you very much, Alderman Rutkowski. Are there any questions or comments? This is $150,000 that was previously allocated. This is just awarding the contract to Martin Laverio Contractors, Inc. out of Bristol. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Hargraves.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to accept and adopt Resolution 7.
Seconded by Alderwoman Sanchez.
Resolution 7 is it's a bid award to DACO for our summer Camp Total Wreck. As you can see, they were the lowest bidder. The camp runs 7 weeks, as we all know, throughout the summer. House over 500 kids throughout the summer. Do something fun. They get to go to the pools. They get to have fun. A lot of them don't have that transportation. Their parents are working, or they just don't have it, and I urge adoption.
Thank you, Alderman Hargraves. It's always wonderful to support a New Britain-based company. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Dyson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept item number 8 and refer to the Committee on Admin, Finance, and Law.
Seconded by Alderman Thompson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just real quick, this is to establish the new voting districts to accommodate the new ward boundaries that we passed earlier, and I urge referral.
Thank you, Alderman Dyson. Just to clarify, right, so this will be establishing the districts that we physically go to vote at within the wards that were just approved. I hope I said that in a way that wasn't confusing. Any questions or comments on the referral? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman Costa.
I make a motion to accept and adopt item number 9.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Malinowski.
Thank you. This is just a list of tax abatements, corrections, and refunds referred by the collector, the tax collector for our acceptance. And I urge adoption.
Thank you very much, Alderwoman. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And Alderman Smedley for closing it out this evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept item number 10 and refer it to Committee on Plan.
Seconded by Alderman Russell.
Thank you. This is related to the sale of 20.18 acres of city-owned property known as Pinnacle Business Park for $950,000 to Polymer Precision, and it will be discussed in committee. I do urge referral.
Thank you. Alderman Smedley, any questions or comments on the referral? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Made by Alderman Smedley, seconded by everyone, including Alderman Thompson. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye.